Some really common things that I get from students are things like, I'm a person who wants to become the best version of myself. I want to grow and evolve. I'm smart. I can work with my limiting beliefs. I can reflect on how my actions impact myself and others, and I can focus my efforts on the goals that I set for myself. So why do I need a guru? These are really, really common thoughts and questions of people who are pursuing a personal growth path, a spiritual growth path. And if this is your path, then you may come to a point in your journey where you question whether or not you need a teacher. So in this video, I'm going to explain what a guru is and why one is necessary. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome to my channel here where we talk about living an extraordinary life by practicing time-proven and tested teachings of yoga wisdom traditions. I am your host, Lisa Engles-Witter. I'm a psycho-spiritual counselor, a meditation teacher, and the creator of the Karmic Warrior Oracle deck. The goal of this channel is super simple. It's just to make it easier than ever before for anyone to find happiness and fulfillment in their everyday life by using the wisdom teachings that have already been passed down for millennia, and to occasionally dispel some of the popular myths out there in New Age spirituality which hold us back without our even knowing. Now, two quick things before we dive into this video. First, be sure to subscribe to my channel because I release new videos just like this one to guide you along your spiritual path on a weekly basis. And then second thing is that most spiritual seekers have heard of the law of attraction, but did you know that there's another law, the law of karma, that if you understand how it works, you can live a life free of struggle, free of frustration and anxiety and worry despite any challenges you might be facing. If you aren't familiar with the law of karma, then do be sure to download my free ebook called Karma Demystified. It's a quick 15-20 minute read where you get a crash course in what the law of karma is, how karma is created, and how to clear your karma so that you can step into a freer, more fulfilling life right now. So let's begin with the basics here. What does guru mean? Well, guru, or guru, how you would say it correctly, guru, is a Sanskrit word that simply means teacher, someone who has a lot of knowledge about a particular subject. So while the word guru is often thought of as a spiritual guru, a spiritual teacher in India, and in Indian tradition, a guru could be a guru of any type of knowledge. For instance, my husband has been playing tabla for 40 years. Tabla, which is an Indian percussion, Indian drums. And so his teacher, his guru, is a guru in that particular art form in Indian music. You could have a guru for dance, a guru for singing, a guru for any form of anything that requires some form of knowledge. So that's just to get the records clear. What does guru mean? It simply means teacher, someone who has a deep knowledge of a particular subject area. So let's just get to this question, answering this question right off the bat. Do you need a guru? And the answer is very simple. No, you do not need a guru. You do not need a guru if you are someone who is pursuing personal growth. The project of personal growth is based in matters of what I would call the manifest world. So if you're looking to manage stress, if you want to create better, healthier habits for yourself, like eating well or exercising, if you're interested in developing your emotional intelligence or dealing with your negative thoughts and beliefs, or working to have better interpersonal communication, these are all what I would call in the realm of personal growth, and you do not need a guru if you're on the personal growth project path. PPP, personal growth project path, right? However, You absolutely do need a guru if you are embarking on or in pursuit of spiritual growth and spiritual awakening. So I just want to make that distinction that these are two very different projects. They often get confused. One is a personal growth project, the other is a spiritual growth or spiritual awakening project. And they're two entirely different things. Now, many of the elements of personal growth are included in spiritual growth, but spiritual growth, I would say, really transcends the project of personal growth. But because it is focusing on your own awakening to your true nature as the one divine love intelligence that lives in you, through you, and as you. All right, so now that we got that clear, yes, you do need a guru if you are embarking on and if you are in pursuit of spiritual awakening. At some point or another, you're going to hit this point where you will be spiritually stuck if you don't have a teacher. So let's use an analogy here of why you need a guru and answer that question. Why do you need a guru? So the analogy we'll use is the analogy of climbing a mountain. And we won't just use any mountain here, not like, a 9,000 foot climb up a mountain, but like a really, 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 really big mountain, like Mount Everest type of mountain, right? So the spiritual path is sort of like climbing Mount Everest. You need a guide. You need a Sherpa. You need someone who knows the territory and who has the map to the territory. The guide to your guide who's going to help you up this mountain, they know all types of things that you don't know about the mountain. The mountain representing the spiritual path. So the Sherpa, the guide of the mountain, is going to know things like, how steep it is in the beginning, the middle, and the end, where those steep parts are, where it's downhill, where the dangerous parts are. But the guide is also going to know how to pace your climb, like how fast you should be going so that you don't hurt yourself. The guide is also going to know when you're going to need to put on that oxygen mask. If you're climbing Mount Everest, if you've ever heard of anybody climbing Mount Everest, you know that there's a certain point. Think like, I don't even know where it is, base camp or just past base camp, that you need to put that oxygen mask on because there's not much oxygen as you get towards the top of the mountain. So you're going to have to put on your oxygen mask. You're going to need to know what dangers are ahead of you, including any type of inclement weather that might come up, and how do you deal with that inclement weather, which we know always happens when you're climbing big mountains like Mount Everest. So don't you agree that it would be foolish to try to navigate your way up Mount Everest for your first time without having a guide, without having a Sherpa? Well, a guru is like your spiritual Sherpa. The word guru again means teacher, but they are your Sherpa. They're going to help you through your spiritual terrain. A guru knows what the spiritual terrain is. They're going to get you to the summit, and the summit being knowing the truth of who you really are and the true nature of reality. They're going to get you there safely because there are dangers along the way. Your guru knows the path of awakening. They've been there, they've experienced it, so they know what lies ahead for you. And also the guru knows what path is going to be appropriate for you. Just like on any type of mountain, there's usually not just one path. There's several different routes that you can take to get to the summit. The same is true when you're on the spiritual path. There's different routes that you can go, but which one is appropriate for you? Well, your guru is going to know. they're going to know because they have experience, and they're going to know, okay, you need to go this way, whereas someone else might need to go the other way. Like I said, a mountain has many paths to the summit. A guru's going to be able to evaluate which path is appropriate for you. All right, so now we're clear. You don't need a guru if you're interested in personal growth. Just go get a coach, go get a therapist. But you do need a guru if you are interested in spiritual growth. So the next thing you might be asking yourself, or needing to ask yourself, is how do I know if someone is a true guru, or a guru who's going to be good for me? Now, I made a whole other video called True Guru, which I'll put the link to in the description below this video, sort of to make that distinction. And I'll go into a little bit of that here. But this is actually a fairly tricky question to answer. Like, how do I know who's the right teacher for me? Because there is this mistaken belief that a guru or a teacher has to be, number one, fully awakened in order to give you transmission or initiation, to give you transmission of what's called the guru principle, which is a whole other topic that we're not going to talk about here. But that isn't actually true. A spiritual teacher is someone who simply needs to have enough experience of the spiritual territory, who has a map of the territory, and they can map it out and guide you effectively through the territory. So let me say that again. A spiritual teacher simply needs to be someone who has enough experience of the spiritual territory that they can map it out for you, and they can guide you effectively through that territory. So here's the thing. Someone might have a lot of experience, but they might not be very skilled at guiding people through the territory. I go back to my years as an athlete, and just because someone is a good athlete doesn't mean that they're going to be a good coach. That's the analogy here. There are a lot of good, I was a runner and I was a running coach. There are a lot of great runners, don't make good running coaches necessarily, right? Same with basketball or football. It's not always the case. Sometimes it is the case, but not always the case. On the other hand, you might have someone who has a lot of theoretical knowledge. They might be a really, really wonderful scholar of spiritual traditions, but they don't have the direct experience themselves of having gone through the territory. So that type of person wouldn't be a good teacher either. So you need someone who has the experiential knowledge. They don't necessarily have to be a scholar, but they need to be able to be a good guide for you. All right, so that's very, very important. But another thing, another sort of myth about the guru, about the teacher, is that they need to be someone who's infallible, that they are a perfect human being, and that's actually not the case either. Gurus are humans. They have their human personalities that you may or may not like. They may be broke or have gone through financial distress and financial issues. They may not have had the perfect marriages. They may have been married and divorced once, twice, or more. Who knows? These are not good indicators of whether or not someone is going to be a good teacher for you. So you don't want to pigeonhole or you never want to put a teacher on a pedestal and think that they are this perfect human being, and then what happens is you find out, oh wow, they really suck with their finances, or why do they have cancer? These are the types of things that can get in the way of a really good teacher being there for you, because you've idolized them and you've thought, oh, they need to be perfect. They don't need to be perfect. Okay? And then the other thing that I do want to mention, even though I've created a whole video on this, which is the false guru. Again, I'll put the link in the description below. But back in the 60s and back in the 70s, spiritual seekers abound especially in America. And everyone was really open to the gurus, especially if they were from India. And it just so happened that people didn't have very good discernment. They weren't very discerning in who they were picking for their teachers. So then things started to change and stories came out around abuse of power by leaders of spiritual communities. And then the attitude towards gurus started to change, and people started to get turned off by this idea of having a guru and thinking, oh, well, I can be my own guru. I don't need to have a guru, right? So, but then the gurus are still out there. They're just not calling themselves gurus. They're calling themselves teachers or whatever they're calling themselves, self-growth experts. They're calling themselves, spiritual teachers, and they've appointed themselves as spiritual teachers, which, somehow feels safer to people, I guess, but nothing really has changed. So I just want to give a few warning points when you're looking for a teacher. The main thing is to be aware of teachers who have self-appointed themselves as these great spiritual teachers. Now, it can happen, and every once in a while does happen, that someone has a spontaneous awakening, and that awakening is grounded and they're able to abide in that awakening. I think that Eckhart Tolle is the example that I use often. I think I have never been a direct student of his, but from what I can see and what I read of his, he seems to be a quite awakened being and someone who abides in that awakened state. But he's a rare instance. There are a lot of other, especially on YouTube, a lot of other people out there who claim to be awakened that I have my hesitations around. So that's one thing. Be aware of people who are self-appointed. They call themselves awakened without having come from a lineage, which is the other thing. So you probably want to look for a teacher who has a lineage, who's being held accountable by a lineage. That means that they have worked with teachers themselves, if not still currently working with a teacher or teachers themselves. Also, beware of these teachers who have what I would call inner circles that require giving up personal autonomy or financial resources in order to be a part of, or inner circles where you give your service and you're giving your service for a pittance of allowance. That's another thing to be aware of, or to if you're looking at a guru and the community that they run, is that what's happening there. Also be aware of teachers who are using or requiring or claiming that sexual intimacy with them is necessary for their spiritual growth or for your spiritual growth. That's a huge red flag. So all I can say around this is to educate yourself. Watch some of the documentaries that are available, because there are a lot of documentaries now on Netflix and Hulu and HBO available. You can, when you watch these documentaries, what you'll start to see are the patterns of false gurus, right? So some of the ones you might want to look at are the one, I think it's called Wild Country, about Osho, the one about Bikram. Both of those I think are on Netflix. There's one called The Deep End about Teal Swan, that's on Hulu. There's one called The Breath of Fire about Guru Jagat, and that one I believe is on HBO. There's one about the Nexium cult with Keith Raniere. That one's really, really fascinating. And I forget, that one might be on Prime Video. So you can watch any of these and start to see, but I recommend that you do that and then compare those documentaries to true gurus. And some of the modern day ones that you can find on YouTube that I myself follow and have taken their classes and gone to retreats with are Adyashanti, Rupert Spira, Swami Sarvapriyananda, and my current teacher, who is Christopher Wallis. He goes by Harish sometimes. So I'll put all of those links below this video. Very, very important to have those comparisons. Now, the last thing that I want to mention before we wrap this up is that it's not uncommon. In fact, it's very likely that you will have more than one guru in your spiritual path. Along your journey, along your awakening, you will have more than one guru, more than one teacher. Why? Because as my teacher, Harish Wallis, says, most teachers offer only a piece of the map rather than the whole map. So you will likely get that piece from one teacher, and then you'll feel the need to move to another teacher. So it's good practice, and it's very sound practice to work with one teacher for an extended period of time, meaning 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Be with a teacher for several years. Immerse yourself in study with them. Get their feedback. Allow them to guide you along the path. And at a certain point, you may realize, okay, I've gotten everything that I can get here, and it's time for me to move to the next teacher. So my recommendation is to stay within a particular philosophy. So for instance, if you are really into Buddhism, then you might spend several years with one teacher who teaches a particular type of Tibetan Buddhism, say, and then you might realize, oh, it's time for me to move on to a different teacher in Tibetan Buddhism and study with that teacher, and that's perfectly fine. That's what's needed. I personally have that path myself, where I've had a few different teachers along the way, and each one has given me so much, and I couldn't have got to where I am right now without my teachers. So very, very important. Now, you will intuitively know when it's time for you to find another teacher. And like I said, that was my case. I just knew, okay, it's time for the next teacher. And when, as that old saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that will certainly happen for you if you are sincerely seeking and you're sincerely wanting and desiring your own spiritual growth. So to wrap this up, do you need a guru? Yes, you absolutely need a guru if you are embarking on the path of spiritual awakening. I would love to hear your comments and questions. You can leave them below this video. I always do answer those. And again, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I do post videos like this one on a weekly basis. Until we meet next time, take care and namaste.